Hi, I'm Dr. John Anderson, and I'm a dissertation supervisor. I don't think there's any one right way, although through experience I think it's often easier for students to begin, or at least begin reflecting back on their literature review, and then either make a decision, right, I'm going to do my methodology next or my empirical chapters next. I think it's important, although it's counterintuitive, to not start with your introduction chapter. Because even through the writing up of your thesis, sometimes your questions change subtly. Sometimes you uncover things through the analysis that you hadn't seen through the collection of that data. And that sometimes means that you might have to add something into your literature review, but actually your introduction chapter will change as a consequence of that. Sometimes your introduction and your conclusion chapters are best left to the end, and they're almost bookends of your thesis. They're almost introducing the problem and reflecting on the problem. So your introduction chapter might go, this is the broad social phenomena, broad geographical phenomena that I'm interested in. This is why it's of interest now. This is my take on it. And a broad introduction to the types of themes, the types of literatures and the types of methodologies you're going to be adopting to engage with that question. By the same token, your conclusion chapter might be this is what my thesis attempted to do. This is why it was of interest. So almost changing the tense. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I did. And that almost, again, takes away the dauntingness, the fear factor of, oh my God, I'm doing a dissertation, it's big and scary and it's going to affect my overall degree mark. I think actually break it down into small chunks. The conclusion chapter being, this is what my thesis attempted to do, and summarize some of the key conclusions from the analysis chapter. Look at perhaps some of the limitations, what you might do differently if you did it again, but also think about what opportunities for future research come off the back of it, what big questions, either theoretically, empirically, in terms of policy, or even indeed methodologically, what things has your thesis discovered or opened up new lines of inquiry about that you could take forward perhaps in a postgraduate piece of work or someone else might take up in the future. Again, there's no one right or wrong answer in this. Some students transcribe the whole of their interviews and include them in the thesis. If you were to include them in the thesis, you can put them in the appendix, so they don't actually count to your overall word count, because obviously interview transcripts can be quite lengthy and it will limit the way in which you can analyze your data. So you can put it in there. Often it's good practice to keep them, to save them somewhere safe. And if you're not putting them in as a transcribed appendix, to make it clear to the reader that they could access them if they wanted to. Okay? The vast majority of students don't transcribe everything word for word. They listen to them back and they transcribe the things that they feel are going to help them in their analysis. So you might have spent 10 minutes discussing the weather at the beginning of the interview. You might not want to transcribe that and put that into your overall analysis, because it's probably not going to be used in your analysis chapters. So you might want to be quite targeted and quite specific to save you time. It's useful for students to be aware that it normally takes about 4 times as long to transcribe something as the length of the interview. So if the interview was an hour long, it's going to take you 4 hours to transcribe. If you've got 8 to 10 interviews, that's a long period of time. So you need to be targeted and prioritize what you think is going to most help you in your analysis.